Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Karen Russo. I'm the author of The Money Keys and creator of CFO Camp, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the CFO Camp Open House, 5 critical results you must track in your business. And I'm excited because this webinar is all about presenting you with my freshest teaching around the 5 critical results areas: income, expense, launch, systems, completion. I'm going to share with you some wonderful success stories that you can model and practical tools that you can apply right away for the money in your life and business. And you should expect at the end of this webinar that you've got things that you can apply right away for spiritual deepening. Because, this is all about more joy, more inspiration in your life so that you've got energy for the gifts you want to share with the world, and you're going to have things that you can apply for your financial expansion. So, yes, more revenue, less expense, more consistent cash flow so you make progress. How does that sound? I'm so glad that I'm with you today, and here's what I know about you. I know that if you are frustrated and overwhelmed and upset even a little bit about managing and leading the money in your life and business, it is costing you. And this is especially true for those of you who have money flowing in. So maybe you're at the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 level, but you're still feeling stuck and overwhelmed, and you know you can get to that low six-figure level. And this is also true for those of you. We've got folks who have $500,000 businesses that can see $1 million, but realize I've got blocks, old stuff, shame and guilt and upset about money that's keeping me stuck, or I'm making financial decisions, but then I'm doubting them and it's draining me. Or maybe I'm not growing because I'm overwhelmed with financial tasks and I can feel micromanaging is not going to get me out of this. So if any of that's going on, what I want to let you know is that it's absolutely possible to have a different experience, and that's what this conversation is all about. So today in this session, we're going to help you discover more clarity, more confidence, and more consistent cash flow in your life and business. And that includes the teaching on the 5 critical results areas. So by all means, these are things that you're probably already paying attention to, but I'm putting together some stuff in a new way, so you're going to see things a little bit differently. I'm also going to be sharing with you success stories of business owners and creative professionals and artists and designers and healers and teachers and experts, folks who have made big changes in relatively short periods of time. What I'm seeing is that 90 days is this precious amount of time where it's short enough so that it gets our attention, and that it takes some discipline and consistency. And wow, in CFO Camp, you're together with me, your money coach, live every single Monday, and that's critical because 90 days in some ways it just goes so fast. But it's also spacious enough so you really can have change happen. So I'm going to share with you stories that are stories of the kind of 90-day magic. And then I want you to know all of the details about our next 90-day CFO camp. This coaching intensive begins, our next one begins in May, and you're going to have all the information you'll need by the end of this webinar to decide if joining the group is a fit for you. And for those of you that are on live, I'm also going to be, when I ring the bell at the end of the formal time, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A about your own personal situation and the fit for you. And plus, I'm going to be sharing with you some very wonderful specials that come for people who come live to the event. And for those of you that want to get all the details and you want to go there right now, the invitation letter for the 90-day CFO camp is at 90daycfocamp.com. So that's 90DAYCFOCAMP, 90daycfocamp.com. And as I mentioned, 90 days is this precious amount of time where magic can happen. So here's what I've seen in leading folks through the CFO camp is people are getting immediate predictable results in 3 areas. Number one is cha-ching. Those are financial breakthroughs. So we had folks like, wow, I sold my first commissioned art piece, or I finally started earning income from the career coaching workshops I was doing as a gift. We also had a gal just recently who discovered 18,000 in unrecovered benefits. So people are having cha-ching financial breakthroughs. And what's wonderful is sometimes they're 3 digits, sometimes they're 4, sometimes they're 5. And it's absolutely possible to have a big breakthrough in 90 days. Now, part of why that happens is here's the next area of predictable results. People have transformation. So for those of you that are looking at the slides, you see the individual who's being set free. This is a spiritual experience, these 90 days. So whether you're a person who considers themselves already spiritual or religious or ethical, or that you're into personal growth, I think you're going to enjoy that in this 90 days, we're going to have you take a look at your inner experience of leading wealth and money. And we had one gal recently, smart, sharp, professional, and she said, I didn't realize how much I was operating under this burden of this inner struggle. I thought I'd worked it through. Can I be a good mom and be good at business? So she had another level of healing and transformation and insight about that. We've also had folks who said, I had a conversation with my longtime partner about money that was more courageous, more freeing, more interesting, more loving than I ever would have imagined. So think about, for you, what's up for transformation? Some of you are pretty savvy. You've done some work before. What I'll say is it's like a spiral. If you've got any area of your life, like for me, I'm always working with how can I heal the idea that I can have what I want financially if I work hard and struggle? I'm always healing, like, what if it comes through ease and love and grace? I'm always transforming with that. What's yours? And then the other result area that people get in 90 days is momentum. Momentum is the precious combination of, really, we use a technology called Money Monday, Faithful Friday, where you build your wealth through action and awareness. Both are critical. So momentum is not just frenzied action, and momentum is not just mystical receptivity. It's both. And for momentum, it means people said, wow, I got the draft of my book done in the 90 days. We had a gal who, what she did is she got her first public event produced. She'd always thought, I want to be an event producer, and she was able to get the first one up and done. We had another person, a writing expert and creative. This is an interesting piece about momentum. Sometimes it's not what you think. She said, I'm glad I kept my day job. I had all this pressure on me to let go of my day job so that I could get my web series started. What I got to see in this 90 days is keeping my day job made the most sense. It provided me with financial stability, and I got the web series up and running. So what are the projects and issues for you where momentum can help? So you can see, I don't want you to just be a passive viewer of this webinar experience. I want you to get the most out of it. And for those of you that are looking at the slides, it says grab your journal and write now, what's the most important financial goal in your life and business right now, particularly for the next 3 to 6 months? And I can see we've got folks on the live webinar. I'm going to do a little wave. Judy, I can see that you're with us. In a moment, I'm going to hand you the microphone and ask you to give me just your best answer to these questions. So you didn't know this is coming, Judy, but I know we'll have a little fun with it here. What's your most important financial goal in your life and business right now? So, for example, there are people who say, I've got to launch my next offering, and I want to do it profitably. Or someone else might say, it's really about proving the business model in terms of revenue for my expert business. Others would say is, I've just made a big technology change, and I've got to link that to increased revenue. It's just been too big an expense. So just go ahead and think through what's the most important financial goal in your life and business. why is this goal important to you? Why is the goal important? And then what most needs to change for you to move that goal forward? Whether you're watching the replay or whether you're with us live, I'm going to give you just about 30 seconds. Just gather your thoughts. Whatever comes to mind first is great. And then, Judy, I'm going to hand you the mic and just hear your wonderful take on this. What's the most important financial goal? Why is it important? And what needs to change? All right, dear Judy. Hey there. I'm so glad you're with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for reaching out to me.
Well, be brave, my dear. What's your goal?
Well, so my goal is to attract new clients. I've had about a year and a half of clearing everything in my life. And along with all of that, my clients have been successful. I provide alternative financial products, I guess, that are alternative to the bank. And all these clients have graduated. And so that's my biggest goal.
Wonderful. And why important? I kind of suspect you're all about service and creativity, but what's the why for you?
Well, there's a couple of things, Karen. First of all, there's this really not so lovely downturn happening in the province of Alberta and all places like North and South Dakota as well, where they're affected by the huge decrease in the price of oil. And more than ever, small business owners need financial help. The banks are turning them down. Banks are accepting applications, but they're not even sending them out for adjudication. And, business owners are really the backbone of, I believe both Canada and the U.S., and boy, do they ever need our help. Now, the segue into that is that I've accumulated some debt, and I want to get that debt paid down because I'm not getting any younger, and at some point I would like to retire and perhaps do other things.
Oh, okay. So that's great. So the goal for you of the attracting new clients, it's got both a service commitment aspect. I want to help these small businesses that need financial help, and then there's also a financial stewardship leadership for your own life. I want to pay down debt, set myself up for the next phase of your life.
Absolutely.
All right, and then the bonus question, and everybody who's listening and enjoying this, send Judy a lot of appreciation because she, of course, I'm sure many of you are relating, whether you have a similar kind of business or not. What most needs to change for you to move that goal forward? Like, what attracted you to come to a session like this today? What is it in you that needs to change or shift or grow?
I'd say that there's a couple of things. My spiritual path has really, really grown, and I believe that there is a higher power, the universe, God, Jesus, whatever you want, whatever you believe in, that's out there that is willing to help if you ask for the help. And also, the other one is it's my thinking. It's absolutely me. I'm the block. I need to change my thinking, moving more into abundance all the time, and it's about deserving.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I definitely have found that for myself and working with clients is that there's an interesting thing about that dynamic of accumulating debt while sharing our gifts. There's some dynamic in there about the belief in abundance and deservedness and value and funding from the start. There's something in there, and it's not because we're weak or we're not working hard enough, but there's often something in there that is calling for like a fresher idea about it. And is that where you're suspecting the change would be for you?
Oh, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Well, good. Well, thank you so much. So everybody's sending tons of appreciation to you for stepping out, and I'm letting Judy kind of like bask in getting our attention. But that's the level of participation in this conversation I want you to be at. So you can see that I've asked you to think not just what are your goals, but I'm asking you to think about why is it important and what needs to change. And the reason for that is I'm not your typical money coach. And the people that do best with this message are often people who've got that interest in both the what I would call the spiritual, the mystical, the personal growth, the inner, as well as the practical and material. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my background. Some of you I know very well, and for some of you, this is one of the first times you're connecting with me. But my background, my whole life has been a connection of how do you put the material and the mystical together. And I grew up in North America on the East Coast, and for those of you seeing the slides, you'll see the sweet little girl in front of the blackboard. I was a good student. I loved school, and part of why I loved school is we had some family challenges. I had some fears and shame in my own character, but boy, at school, I felt like all of that stuff could kind of go away, and I was a great student. And as I moved into my high school and university, I also I loved math and business and study. And I was in my 20s at Columbia Business School in the States. There, I was studying finance, and I had this outer hardworking good student thing, but I was hiding, and it wasn't going so well. My own challenges with alcohol addiction and a lot of shame, based on many of you will relate to this. It's like I had a problem with alcohol, then I drank alcohol, then I created problems that I had to hide. And that whole dynamic of I tried to be a good girl by day, but I was a bad girl by night. And the legacy it left me, the inner pain was the hardest. And really, I was just brought to my knees by this. And of course, for many of you, you'll relate, is that surrender into I can't study or work or figure my smart way out of this. I had to surrender into a power greater than myself. And so, it'll be 26 years pretty soon. 26 years ago, I really surrendered my inner life to creating a relationship with something greater. And that, of course, became the greatest blessing in my life because over this 26 years, I've continued to develop a corporate business career. I've worked with Fortune 500 companies as a corporate leadership and sales trainer and consultant. I still do some of that work to this day. And for those many decades, I've developed my own spiritual practice. You see the image of me in meditation at my happiest place on earth, which is the Esalen Big Sur meditation yurt. So those two parts of my life have really been strong: corporate business, money, transaction, banking, and spiritual surrender and practice. And out of the spiritual, I developed as a prayer counselor. I became an ordained minister. I studied with Dr. Michael Beckwith at the Agape Center. And I was still a little bit keeping the business and the spiritual separated until a few years ago it became very clear that I'd bring my own message into the world. And that's where the money keys and today's CFO camp really comes from, is what I've found is that bringing the spiritual and the mystical together with the money and the financial has been really the greatest source of joy for me in my life, and that's what I offer as a coach to you. And some people like to know, if you're going to think about learning from or working with a money coach, it's good to know. You'll see I have a little image on the slide there that says I've been able to keep my own income up over these last 20 plus years. I've been the leader of 3 or 4 different configurations of LLCs and businesses, but always in the low 6 figures, been able to maintain that income level through several different, through a late in life marriage and several moves and a couple of real estate downturns, been able to keep our portfolio strong. And I live my life today with the principles we'll be working with, clarity, that inspiration helps us to move from fear into a sense of peace. I work with confidence, which is that whole piece around deservedness that you heard Judy talk about, worth and trust and self-faith. And then I'm really in regular weekly practice with the tools that I teach around creating a life of, vitality and health with cash flow. So that's a little bit about my background. And here's what I'm teaching in the 90-day CFO camp is that there are 5 critical results areas that you need to track in your life and business for you to really be living right now in clarity, confidence, and cash flow. So in your journal, what you might even write is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I'm going to go through each of these areas, share a little bit of what's important in income, expense, launch, improve, and complete. I'll also share a little bit of a success story so that you can model and learn from others, and I'll give you a couple of tips about how to get started. You'll also see that I'm using the phrase here, what goals are you committed to? So sometimes what I notice is that people think about goals as these hopeful outcomes for the future. Like, oh, I want to increase income. Let me see at the end of 90 days what's happened with my income. And it's a little bit of a passive thing, like I'm going to do stuff and then hope later I have a different result. And what I want to work with you in is more about what are you committed to now around increased income that calls you into action each week. So commitments are more about the steps I'm engaged in each week if I'm attracting new clients for alternative financial products. You're going to think about on a week-by-week basis, where am I committed, which makes you not trying to control outcomes, but engaged. It's a little bit of a subtle difference. Let's look at increasing income. So increasing income is all about more top-line money coming into your life and business. And here's a story about Christy. She's another one of our Canadian friends. This is Christy Nicol, who is a physical therapist healer in the Kootenays in British Columbia. And in this picture, you see her on top of the world. But when I met her, she was struggling. She had debts. And it was very interesting because she was very focused in her life and business. Her big goal was, I've got student loan debt. I need to pay down my debt. I have government debt. I need to pay down my debt. I have credit debts for launching my studio. I have debt, debt, debt. How do I pay down my debt? And for her, the first place to make the shift was she started to look at her life not just as debt repayment, but she asked the question, what's the money for that's coming into my life? And she got more connected with her big why, like what I asked Judy about earlier. And her big why is, I am bringing alignment and balance to people of all ages for abundant, active living. And when she got everything that she does week to week in service to that why, she started to come up with the creative ideas to rent out part of her studio, to engage clients in new ways, to offer packages, to do some web work. And she ended up with her first, $10,397 month pretty darn quickly. And yes, she did end up repaying her debts. It took a little longer than she thought, but she did it from a place of increased income. So that's one of the big tips I want to give you is when you think about increasing income, is put your focus on the top line. What are the ways that money comes into your life and business? And how can you be creative in terms of attracting more of the right kinds of clients who are a fit for you? What are additional projects that you might engage in? How can you repurpose or leverage the content or programs or things you already have? what's the channels where income flows, where you can expand? How can you get a greater percentage of margin? Where, if anywhere, should you be raising prices? And the principle that underlies this here is there's one infinite, loving, eternal, creative, unconditional source. Out of that, we're supplied through channels. And for many people, we get fearful about money and we kind of hold back if we think that one channel is what brings us security. And when you understand that connection with source, you're instantly more inspired and creative. Christy had to get more creative and a little bit more courageous out there, but when she did that, her income increased. Decrease expenses. This is the second area that's essential for you to track. So we often think of, when we think of decreasing expenses, we sometimes have the mistaken idea that it's about budgets or holding back or denying ourselves that, that $5 latte. And I want you to think a little bit differently about the wisdom required to decrease the expenses in your life and business. So this is beautiful Claire Perkins. She's an artist and a healer and a writer from the Southwest. And with Claire, it was an interesting place. She had some ambivalence around how she was working with her beloved spouse, her partner in marriage around money. And she felt a little guilty that her spouse was out there earning money in a corporate job, and Claire for decades had been managing the money, and she felt like her artistry was somewhat of a hobby area. And for one of the things that was interesting is she was not valuing the wisdom and insight that she brought to money management. And so in the 90 days, when she got energized about being committed, ironically of course, to both valuing her artistry not as a hobby but as a gift to the world, she started to have more courageous and creative conversations with her beloved around money. And for her, she increased her income by 15% in the 90 days. And together they found $900 per month to take out of their healthcare expenses, which ended up being a real win in a short period of time. So I want you to find in your life, when you look at your spending and you want to decrease expenses, you want to look at both fixed expenses, which are the things that are usually the larger expenses that you might invest in kind of like year to year or at the quarter in your life or business. And sometimes fixed expenses are housing expenses, technology expenses, salary expenses if you have a team, is that some of those seem or feel like they're fixed, like I can't really change them, like that's the structure I've got. Variable expenses are the things we sometimes over-focus on. I'm going to cut down on lattes. But you know what? Skimping doesn't really make us rich. What often is the wisdom in our lives is look at the big expenses you're making and look for ones that you can renegotiate, you could leverage, you could reduce, you could bundle, you could remove. And it's better to spend wise energy around a few big things than it is to kind of tinker with small stuff that's variable. It's also good, we'll talk about this when we talk about launch, is that if you're going to make new investments in a coaching program like CFO Camp or in a marketing program, is you want to see your way to a good ROI, return on your investment, pretty quickly. And the other piece with expenses is if you're going to put attention on this for 90 days, is part of what you might do in 90 days is in the first week you might gather all of the expense information by looking at your online tracking for the last year and doing some math. The next week you might evaluate one whole category and make some decisions. The next week you might make the outreach to do the negotiations. Like people sometimes will think of expenses and reduction as being this like kind of boring thing, or that it's hugely time-taking. And what I've noticed is if you break it down week by week into bite-sized chunks, it's very effective. Launching profitably. This is your third area. Launching means bringing something new out into the world. And what I've noticed is for many business owners and professionals, there's this chronic feeling that there's a billion things I should be doing. Like, oh my gosh, Periscope, I should be doing Periscope. Or, I should have a VIP day program offering. Or maybe I should join this marketing thing. Or I should get connected with BNI. There's this like endless stream of, quote, stuff to do that are all good ideas. And what I find is that vitality, which is healthy circulation, will sometimes lead us to doing less stuff, but to doing the things we choose to do more healthily, more vitally, which often means more profitably. And the story we'll tell here is this is Tim. So Tim's a smart guy, big visionary, creative thinker, marketing mind. And when I met him, he was always thinking big and thinking a little bit like, I'm going to launch a thing with, he had just, for example, launched an internet cafe with a kind of interesting branding in the downtown area of a southwestern city. And, he had done what many entrepreneurs do, which he'd signed some leases for the equipment, and he'd kind of gone all in on this particular cafe. Well, when shifts in the market turned pretty quickly when they had to close down the cafe, he had a personal bankruptcy. And what's good about Tim is he had a sense of like self-regard. He was a creative guy. He's going to learn from that. He was ready, though, to do a complex, kind of joint venture type platform of a new coaching offering that was going to probably take him, 4 to 5 figures of web investment and, 5 to 6 months to get up to speed. And when he really looked at, wait a second, what's happening right now with my personal cash flows, he decided, very interesting, to go out and get a gig. Not that glamorous. He was like a receptionist at a healing center. But he got a gig so he could establish a financial foundation and then did a much simpler launch with his coaching offering using, in today's world, you only have to have like 20 to 40% of the content ready, and there's so many marketing and outreach and platforms that you can use. Tim did a very simple launch of his coaching program, and he ended up, coaching is really his sweet spot. He's done worked as now a coaching and education leader for a healing institute now, and that sense of financial foundation, he's looking weekly at his financial flows. Here's what I encourage for you. Whatever you're going to launch next is you want to look at it and you want to say, how could I have this be a pilot or a beta or a first launch? How could I make sure I circulate, which means I'm going to receive money through contributions or pricing or piloting from the beginning, and how am I going to track my return? And I usually suggest you want to think about a minimum of 100 to 150% return on the things that you do. So when folks think about joining, a coaching program like a CFO camp, if you're going to invest $3,000 to $5,000 in a coaching program, it's wonderful to be able to see, if I join this coaching program, I can see where there's somewhere between, $3,000 to $7,500, like $3,000 to $7,500 of revenue that could be generated from the activities I'll learn and do in this coaching program. That kind of math for your marketing, your coaching, hiring a team member can be really helpful. All right, so you're doing great so far. We've done income, expense, and launch, and now we're into improving. Some people think improving your systems and your processes is sexy. Some people think, oh, it's boring. What I want you to think about for improving is that everything you're up to can be more masterful. And in today's world, it's so interesting is that particularly because, everybody with a Twitter account can be a politician or a pundit or a rock star or a celebrity, is that we sometimes don't value and respect the tactical ways that it's helpful often to look at what we're doing and make it better. And in the area of improvement, you want to think about what are the tasks, the steps, the actions, the systems, the information that is flowing through your life and business and money right now. And if you were to put, here it comes, a little interesting, loving attention on those things, how could they be better? Ironically, the spiritual quality here is the quality of love. So I'm going to tell a story about this. Is Amy Ehlers. She's the CEO of Wake Up Call Coaching, the host of the Mama Truth Show. She's a best-selling author of Big Fat Lies Women Tell Themselves and Reform Your Inner Mean Girl. Her whole coaching business is dedicated to women not being so hard on themselves. And when I met Amy, smart, talented, loving, creative, and she had a little bit of mess going on in her financial life just because she was so creative. She'd had one business and dissolved it, and she was moving into the next creative project. And when she got connected with the Money Keys tools and message, she took 3 steps. One of them is she started to take on the I love and respect myself enough to live a financially prosperous and responsible life affirmation, which is a self-love affirmation that we do in our community. She really took that on a regular basis. She gave a lot of attention every week to what was happening with her financial flows, which she had not done before. And it's not that she became the bookkeeper, but once a week she started looking at her financial flows. And her third step was to stop commingling with some of her new projects and offerings. So she put those steps into action and tripled her income. And she was so excited about that because it was an act of love. So right now for you, what are the processes, which are the series of steps that go into the financial information that flows in your life? And what you want to look for is how can I reduce waste? And for Amy, there was a waste of duplication. Waste is repeated steps, duplication, confusion, lack of access. So you want to look for what are the things where waste can be reduced or value can be added. So what she was doing is once a week when she was sitting down to look at her financial flows, she was deeply connecting them with her marketing activities. So value is how do you get more bang for your buck, or you get more traction out of the things that you're doing. Reduce waste, add value, and love your system. Our final area for you to track and look at so you get results is the area of completion. Completion is all about getting stuff done. And one of the things that we know about what creates joy is there's something really beautiful. It's not just a endorphin psychological thing when we check something off a list. There's something really beautiful for those of you that are connected to wanting to grow is when we feel we're making progress. So completing things. This is the wonderful Sandra Kindred. She's in her best Serena Williams pose there. And Sandra is just a wonderful business professional. She is an expert in organizing, and she is the manager and leader of her husband's chiropractic practice in Tempe, Arizona. So Dr. Willie and Sandra they're wonderful images and leaders for all of us. They're in their 70s, both filled with health. And for Sandra, one of the things she wanted to complete was to make their lives easier. So you remember earlier in this conversation, Judy said, I'm thinking about the next chapter of my life. Well, for Sandra and Dr. Willie, they decided to get out of their brick and mortar chiropractic office and to move and to share office space with another practitioner. And for her to do that, within 90 days, she was able to make the physical office move happen. They released a lot of old equipment and paper. She moved their practice and now she's actually teaching this to other offices and other chiropractors and other health practitioners, how to get your practice on a tablet. So she's able to improve and move things onto the tablet, so they're doing things virtually, which is much more efficient. And she was also able to get a fresh process put in place for their outstanding collections. You can imagine for medical, chiropractic type of offices that collections are a big piece. If you can accelerate collections, you can get a lot more done and accelerate your income. So within 90 days, she was able to make a lot of progress, and mostly it was because she was willing to have weekly actions, accomplish them, and then stop and go out and play tennis. So something that's really valuable is you need to have a sustainable approach to your life and business. One of the things I find is that people who feel overwhelmed are often busier than they need to be, and they don't have enough downtime and rest. So joy is an important part of completion. And so my encouragement for you is on a weekly basis, set aside what are the tasks for the week? What are the most leveraged actions to move my life and business and financial commitments forward? And a task could be a piece of research I want to do, a decision I want to make, communication that's important, and that's a way that you can track your progress. So wonderful. We've been through the 5 different areas, and I want to just see, I'll pause here and get like a comment. I see Terry is on the line. So Terry, I'm going to hand you the microphone in a moment, and I'd love to just hear from you. What did you get so far out of these 5 areas? Like which one feels important to you, or what insight do you have? So Terry, hello, I'm glad you're with us.
Hi, I'm from Colorado.
Wonderful.
I think the thing that I found the best was tracking my fixed expenses during the week and finding ways to reduce the waste. That really is a good thing for me to do. And then I'm also in a spiritual community, Mile High Church, in Lakewood, Colorado, and that really helps with my spiritual aspect. Every week I go to church, and that helps taking some of their programs. And I believe you've spoken at Mile High Church before. Mm-hmm. So, and the completion part too, that's important. And I have some problems with that. I do procrastinate, I have to admit. So that's part of it. I need to do more of the love and respect part of it. So
yeah. Oh, good. Well, thank you so much, and everybody just appreciate Terry for just for speaking up and sharing. And I bet a lot of people are relating to you. That energy of like the procrastination energy. My experience with that is often it's the thing seems so. It either seems big or complicated or hard, and so we sort of let it go, and we're not really committed to it. But it's this constant feeling we should. It really is an energetic relationship to that thing that keeps us in procrastination. So I appreciate you talking about that. And ironically, what I found is like love and weekly, like doing the things doing the things I know I must do that I'm really going to be grateful for doing with love starts to break through that procrastination. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm so glad you're with us. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you to all of you for just being with these 5 different areas. And I'd like you to do just what Terry did. Just think for a moment, which are the things I really want to take with me? What are the things that are important? And I'm going to share with you now a little bit about how CFO Camp is an opportunity for you to get really into progress with these 5 areas. And then after I share about CFO Camp, I'm going to tell you a warning about 2 things that are surprisingly important that go along with this approach. So you'll see here at CFO Camp, and CFO Camp, as I mentioned, is a 90-day coaching intensive. It's a group coaching program with me, and it's all about your really being the CFO, the chief or the leader of the faith, so the spiritual leader, the focus, the progress and activity leader, and the finances, what's happening financially for your life and business. And you're with your money coach every Monday in CFO Camp. So that's, people are like, oh my gosh, we're with you live every week. That's what makes this in many ways so profound, is you're getting teaching, accountability, validation every single Monday. And we'll start on Monday, May 16th with a bonus. And when we're together, we're either together in webinar form like this, where we're together for 75 to 90 minutes, and you're looking at slides, and you've got your you're on the phone and you're looking at slides, and you've got your journal out and your numbers up, or we're together for a phone-only accountability and check-in call. So we alternate those. So it's 90 days. The Mondays it's 7 a.m. Pacific. And what you're getting is you're getting the content from me that's been curated or selected. So my best 10 years of teaching around the 5 different areas, I've taken 10 years of teaching and I'm pulling out the freshest, latest stuff for our group webinars and our accountability phone call. So every Monday you're getting the best stuff. You'll also see that you do get a private one-on-one session with me that most folks will use during their first 2 to 3 weeks of CFO Camp. What's also great is you get access to ask me questions and get ideas for you every single week. We also have a private CFO Club site that has all of the replays of the webinars and the phone calls, and you get access to over 100 audios, videos, tools, journaling exercises that are on our Money Keys community site. We also have a special new tool, which is Mind PT, which is a personal trainer for your mind. So remember earlier when Judy said thinking, we have a Mind PT session, which is it's over 1,000 images and affirmations that you watch and listen to on your phone in a rapid way that uses neuroscience and the power of affirmation to train your mind and heart and energy so that you're positively primed for taking the actions you need to take. So it's a wonderful tool. And then we have a private Facebook group where people are always in connection with me. I travel with my iPhone everywhere, and so I am answering questions and giving love and feedback and validation on that private Facebook group all the time. Plus, you get an accountability partner that you not only do you connect with on your Mondays when we're all together live, but we also recommend that at least once else during the week you're exchanging a text or you're checking in with your accountability partner. So you can see CFO Camp is 90 days of accountability, support, content, love, and wisdom around income, expense, launch, improve, and complete. But I told you I had some warnings, so I've got 2 different warnings for you. And that is, I'm really not your typical money coach because I do a little bit of 2 things, and I do them pretty explicitly. I believe you're not going to grow unless you're challenged. And so to be challenged, one of the things that we do is we insist upon tracking. And for some people, this is challenging, but it's the good kind of challenging. So every week, you're going to be completing a scorecard. And on that scorecard, you're going to be tracking at least one thing that you can count. So you'll see the number symbol there. So for some of you, for somebody like Judy, it might be she might commit to 10 outbound proactive phone calls to set up conversations with either prospective clients or networking opportunities. So 10 outbound phone calls every week. So she's going to be tracking. When we come together on Monday, she's going to say, last week I did 7 of my 10, and here's what I learned. Or I did 13 of my 10, and here's what I've learned. You're also going to be tracking at least one thing you can measure, whether it's U.S. or Canadian or whatever currency you're measuring, in terms of currency amount. So some people will be tracking the overall revenue from their small business. Others may feel more comfortable. I'm going to track my one stream of my business. So maybe it's a new product offering. So everyone's going to be tracking something financially every week. And then you're also going to be tracking something you can rate on a 1 to 5 scale. So somebody who maybe wants to have a better relationship with their beloved around money, what you might track is, what was the climate? How much love and free flow was there? If it was there was a tense argument, I might give it a 1. But if we had a loving, joking conversation, I might give it a 4 that week. So there's something you're going to rate. Every single week, you're going to be just like a CFO. On Mondays, you're going to be, quote, looking at your numbers, unquote. And you're also going to have a calendar for the 90 days, so you're going to be able to plan out. So Terry, we're going to have you say, this is the time. It's Thursday afternoon. I'm not going to try to do that whole activity, but I'm going to take the first step. And, you're going to have your plan to dissolve procrastination is you're going to have a calendar plan. Some people may feel like, and some people may feel like, when they hear this. What I'll tell you is, this is one of those ones you're going to be glad to have done. It's like 90 days, 13 weeks, I can prove to myself I can track. And when I track, what I'm doing is I'm showing myself love. Because that's the other kind of warning I wanted to give you that's a little bit different, which is, I'm a money coach, but the reason people have transformation is I already believe that you're whole. So throughout the 90 days, you're going to be held in what's called affirmative prayer, which is, I believe there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing lacking. You're one with an infinite, creative, loving, abundant source. So am I, so is everyone. And throughout the 90 days, we have a prayer counselor who's dedicated to our community. Once a month, she and I talk live, and we speak the names of the people who are in CFO camp out loud in affirmative prayer. Throughout the 90 days, we are holding you in a place where we know that you're already wealthy. And often, it's that vibration and energy which creates the opening for having transformation that you can expect, but also having transformations you might not expect. So that's our wonderful webinar. I've told you about CFO Camp that we begin in mid-May. You're together with me every Monday, all of the different tools. For those of you that would like to learn more about CFO Camp, you can go to 90daycfocamp.com. You'll see the website there where the letter of invitation is, 90daycfocamp.com. And before I ring the bell and stop the formal replay, I'll let the folks know that for those of you that are on live, after I ring the bell, I'm going to stay on for questions. I'm also going to tell you about a wonderful special offer that we have for CFO Camp. So I'll tell that to the folks who are on live in just a moment. And sometimes people say, you know what, this sounds good, but I'm not sure if it's a fit for me. So we'd like to let you know that if you want to have a live conversation with me, what we call a discovery session, to see if CFO Camp is a fit for you, you can absolutely do that. And at 90daycfocamp.com, if you scroll to the bottom of the invitation letter, you'll see a place that says, would you like to schedule a discovery session with Karen to see if CFO Camp is a fit? And when you click that link to schedule your session, you'll see a short survey, a little mini application with a couple of questions about what are your goals, what are you hoping to accomplish, what's been your experience of working with a coach. When you complete that, get it to our team, they'll get you set up for a complimentary conversation with me where we'll talk about your specific situation, and really be able to help you decide if working with me as a coach is a good fit for you. So you'll see that at 90daycfocamp.com. So I've so loved being with you all. What I know about you is you're already wealthy, and that just by your investment of being here, you are absolutely stepping into greater contribution and purpose and inspiration and joy and clarity and self-confidence and faith as a leader in your money life. And you are on your way to greater income, reduced expenses, launching profitably, the cha-ching of consistent cash flow. So thank you so much for being with me. Peace and blessings.